Greetings and welcome to another Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team video where I'm going over the Quarter 3 Summer tier list for Kill Team. But before we get into things, please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of this video. Do you agree or disagree? Remember, I've got a Discord you can check out in the episode description below, as well as an affiliate link in Element Games, and a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. But yeah, we've had another balanced Dataslate. I've had a few games. So it's time for another tier list. Do them every quarter after a balanced Dataslate, to kind of represent what the meta is and where it's going. Now remember, once again, when it comes to the tier lists, this isn't like a concrete yes or no on everything. It's more of a guideline, because once again, if you're very skilled, generally, the more experienced you are in a faction, the better you are against other people, because Kill Team is still a skill-based game, even though this meta makes that very difficult. But there's some general things. So S tier, because once again, all the tiers are kind of, it's a guide for general players more and what you expect to see in the meta, because like a S tier, a kill team that's very likely to win a tournament and always top, you're very likely to go 4-0 or 3 wins and a loss, right? Then you've got the A tier teams. They're just a bit below the S tier kill teams, or in this case for this season, for this 3 months, a lot more worse than the S tier kill teams, but they can win an event, but they're more likely to go 3 wins and a loss. They have way more bad matchups than the S tier kill teams, which makes them, not as good. They're still strong, but a lot more noticeably weaker. Then we have the B tier kill teams. They're more like the middle of the road or getting there. Once again, they're likely to go 3-1 or 2-2, right? It's quite close. They may win a tournament, but you're going to have to put a lot more effort into doing it, and it may come down to factors outside of your control. Then you've got the C tier kill teams. They're kill teams that are basically, fairly reliable, going to go 2 wins, 2 losses, middle of the road. They can win tournaments, but it's very hard. They're just an all-round balanced kill team, and they basically have as many good matchups as they do bad matchups. Then we've got the D tier kill teams. These are quite weak kill teams, to be honest. You're more likely to go 1 win and 3 losses, although 2 wins and 2 losses is reliable as well. Very unlikely to win a tournament. Lots of bad matchups, way more than the good matchups, and generally a lot harder to play as well. Then we've got the E tier kill teams. They're very likely to just go 1 win and 3 losses, just quite bad. Lots of bad matchups, just a rough time. And then we have a new tier list, F tier. Very likely to go 0 wins and 4 losses. Just unfortunately the worst of the worst. But as we've said, you've now got a hint, because I had to add a new tier. And for this tier list, I'm actually just ranking them all. So instead of going like, into the dark and open, this is more a mixed tier list, including every faction. So let's get into it. So starting off in the F tier, we have Compendium, Tau, Crouton, Necrons. Not much really to cover here. They're very much unchanged. Now, because of the state of the meta, instead of, well, you'll see, right? You'll see. But we have a new F tier, and it's just these guys, once again, bottom of the crop. They have bespoke versions, which you just play instead. Then we've got the E tier. There's most of the compendium. So we've got Chaos Demons, Eldari, Drukhari, Orcs, Grey Knights, Sisters of Battle, generic Chaos Space Marines, Genestealer Cult, all the Marine types, right? They're okay. Like in a compendium meta, it's pretty much fine. They're all right kill teams, but as I said, generally they're going to go 1 win and 3 losses. Not horrible, but bespoke teams are just better. So now we come on to the D tier. So first up we have Warp Coven, our first bespoke team. Now they did get a nice buff in the balanced Dataslate, but it's a buff that only really affected them in Into the Dark, because rubrics got buffed, so rubrics feel more like Marines. But remember, they still need to operate near sorcerers, and also they are still limited to moving red in their activation. So they're actually quite really slow. I still think an extra operative, like an extra rubric or 2 extra Zangors, would have helped the team a lot more. They are much better in Into the Dark, but at the moment, I think overall they sit in D tier. Definitely one of the weaker kill teams, definitely the weakest elite kill team. Like the other issue is, even if you go full rubrics, you're locked into security, whereas you actually kind of want recon more now, but then you have to go full majority Zangor, so they're not in a greater spot, and they have kind of weak faction tac ops. Then we have the Half-Tin Salvagers. While they did love getting an extra black of movement for normal moves, they are still in a very rough spot. Undeniably one of the weaker kill teams. I was tempted to put in a higher tier, but then I realized like it's generally, that's not what most players will be able to do, because you'll have to put in a lot of effort and practice to get some use out of this kill team. And they do struggle on Into the Dark, although the movement helps a lot with the new change, but the rest of the meta really hurts them. One thing I'd really like to see them get, obviously, is +1 wound, but also for grudge tokens to turn a miss into a hit or hit into a crit. And I think that would probably fix the kill team. But at the moment, they're quite weak. Then we have Grey Knights, Compendium Guard, Tyranids, and Death Guard. These are basically like pseudo bespoke teams. They're still just missing a little bit. And I'm expecting once we get bespoke versions of these kill teams, hopefully in season 3, you know, we can finally like move these guys back. But at the moment, they kind of represent really good compendium teams that are worth taking in tournaments. Obviously, Custodies are a lot better in Into the Dark, but I think overall a fair balance is D tier. Veteran, like the Guardsmen are good as well, Tyranids, and Death Guard can kind of spike depending on their DPR roles. So solid D tier. Next, for C tier, we have Pathfinders, right? So I was tempted to put them in D tier, but I think they're pretty good on open board at the moment. Into the Dark hurts. Into the Dark brings them down like by 2 tiers. So in a mixed tournament, I think C is fine. But it's like, it's really weird how Into the Dark just ruins them. And that's the only thing making them lower. So there is what it is. Kazakin in C tier, I think they're pretty solid. They're great at hunting elite teams. They suffer against teams that match or overwhelm them in terms of numbers, but they're still in a really solid spot at the moment. I think they're pretty much perfect where they are. They can be quite swingy based on how many 4-ops you roll, because sometimes you won't need many elite points. Sometimes you wish you could use it more times. But at the moment, really good. The only thing I'd probably like is if you could spend elite points to do like dash actions, mission actions, something like that. Then I've put Wormblade in C tier. Wormblade are still tricky. I was tempted putting them in D tier, but they're this weird kill team. They're very powerful if you don't know how they work. But once you do know how they work, they're quite predictable. But because of that situation, you have to know them to beat them, which for me puts them above the D tier. So they are still quite weak, but it's this kind of gotcha kill team. So if you don't know how they work, they're just going to roll over you. But if you do know how they work, you can kind of surgically pick them apart and overwhelm them. Then I've put Exaction Squad in C tier. I was actually contemplating putting them in the D tier, but I've moved them up for now. I think they're not the worst kill team, but they're still not great. There is some play, and I think it would be fair to argue, like if they start doing a lot better, they can go into B tier, but they're just missing something. And I think it's mainly just minor buffs. Like or the only thing I would really change is buffing the Battens so they have lethal 5-up and stun, and then making their normal shield profile hit on freeze. And I think that would probably just round them out. I think they're almost there, but at the moment they're still really hard to get and buy because you need a full roster to actually get the most out of this kill team. But at the moment, I think C tier is fair. They're no longer the worst, but they're still struggling a little bit in my opinion. Then for B tier, we have Veteran Guardsmen. I was contemplating putting them in the A tier, but I think what is above them warps the meta so much they just can't compete at the moment. But B is like good for them. They're still a really good kill team. Like they have lots of tricks and they're the best 14 operative kill team. But at the moment I put them in B tier. Then we have Novitiates in B tier. I think there's arguments for putting them above and below. But at the moment I think B is a solid place. Once again, they don't like the meta at the moment, but they're okay. They really do live and die on how you manipulate their fate dice. So you can't really underestimate them, and they're quite solid. Then you've got Corsairs. Corsairs I think are fair in B. They would have been a lot better if we were in a different meta, but at the moment I think B tier is fair. You know, they've been consistently doing around 50% ever since they've dropped, and I think B tier is safe for them. Legionary have come down a tier. I think they're definitely B tier at the moment. But if I was to put them like ranked, they'd probably be top or tied top for B tier. They're like just out of A tier. Like they really don't like the meta either. But you know, they've lost a bit with Nurgle, and they kind of struggle into the rest of the meta. But it's just a weird change. I think it's more what's unnerfed that's rolling around that's hurting them a moment. But you can even see in the stats, they've actually dropped a bit of power and lost out. So it's really interesting to see if this trend continues. But I think B tier is fair for now because they're basically just 12 Rune Marines. Then we've got Phobos in B tier as well. They were notably in A tier last time, mainly because of how the meta is at the moment. I think they're probably tied for Legionary as the best in B tier. Like, I'd probably give the edge to Legionary, but Phobos are still really well. Like, they don't like the change to loot, like none of the elite teams do. But overall, they're still a really good kill team. They just despise what's above them. Then we've got Blooded in B tier. You could argue they're in C tier, but I think they're so good on Into the Dark that it kind of balances them out. They're not really a close range team. They're a mid-range team, but they do really well at that. And I think for B, they're really fine. Like, they're nice and flexible. You still need to put effort in to make them work, but you can't underestimate them. And they really like the changes to Seek and Destroy, so I think they're in a good spot. Next, we have the Farstalker Kinban, the crew in B tier. I think, once again, a solid match. They would like a little bit more melee punch, but that's more design issues. I think B is very fair for them. They still kind of live and die on going balance the books, implant, and recover item, and maxing all their attack ops by turning point 2. But it seems to be a reliable tactic for them that people are underestimating, and they are still quite a powerful kill team. Hand of the Archon are down from A tier to B tier. While I can see their strength and get a lot out of them, I think the general player base can't. I know it's not going, oh, I'm better than the general player base. I think this kill team is really hard to play. They reward you for knowing the matchups and practicing your Into the Dark layouts. They're much better on open boards, but Into the Dark brings them down a little because you have to struggle on playing on a team that's 2 APL with no real ways to modify APL. I think if they had the option to start with 1 or 2 pain tokens, it would just help them on Into the Dark so much. But at the moment, I think B tier is fair for them. And then Hyrotech Circle on B tier as well. I was actually tempted to drop them down a bit, but I think B tier is fair. Depending on what was in the S tier or above, they'd still be one of the strongest kill teams in the game. But at the moment, they have such a horrible matchup, which I'll get to later, that brings them down to B tier. Right, it's depressing. They're a really powerful kill team, but they have such certain bad matchups that you're likely to run into. It just brings them down to B tier. It's a shame, but at least on the basis of it, they're a really solid kill team at the moment. Now we come to the A tier. So first off, we've got the Orc Commandos. Orc Commandos, from the stats, are now the second most popular kill team in the world and have a really high win rate as well. Being able to take the Grot and the Bomb Squig has done wonders for them. They do really well into the kill teams above them, but even then, they also match well into other kill teams on their level and below. They're really good. They really like the change to Infiltration and Seek and Destroy. They're just a really great kill team, really punishing on open boards when they can get really good sneaky gets. A kill team you can't underestimate, but really powerful and really fun to play. And it's great to see a starter kill team so far up, especially this late into a game's lifespan. Then we have Void Dancer Troop. You know, they still fly, they're still free APL, they dodged all the nerfs, right? They're just Harlequins, they're still really, really good. Nothing as much has changed. They were S tier before, and I think at the moment A tier is fine, but it's just bizarre they keep dodging nerfs, but they're still a really good kill team. They usually top events, and they've won quite a few, even recently. So they're still a powerful kill team you can't underestimate. Still got really powerful combos and ploys. Then we've got Hunterclade. They do quite well at the moment. I think people have kind of slept on them because they're not as broken as they were before. So people have kind of underestimated how good they are. They still shred elites with 5 assassins. They have good ways to reliably turn off rerolls. They're a very flexible kill team, only let down slightly by their faction tac ops. But and no indirect or blast, right? They kind of struggle because the only blast is on their leader and double fighting. But they're a very expensive / technically deep kill team, but still really powerful. Then we have Galapox Infected, the team that will also ignore being nerfed. Remember, it's spent like 6 months above a 60% win rate, which is clearly fine. But they're very powerful, lots of wounds, really hard to clear through. You know, nice rules, good faction tac ops. Just a really powerful force you can't underestimate and terrifying on Into the Dark, right? When they can find an open board that allows them to move up freely, they're crazy. So you still have to watch out for these guys. And even on roster selection alone, they lock out a lot of people. Then we've got the Lucidian Starstriders. They were B tier before. I think I might put them in A. And they're definitely A tier now. Like, remember, for some reason they've been buffed, even though they've been winning tournaments and topping. So now they have Relentless on their chain gun. They're very good at getting punishing alpha strikes. Once again, they're not as durable as they used to be, but they're still as tricksy. You can't underestimate them. A very flexible and powerful kill team that only really struggles into elites, but we aren't really in an elite meta at the moment, so they're going to do even better. Crazy that they get buffed is absolutely criminal, but they're a really powerful kill team. Then we have Intercession, so they have taken some nerfs and no longer S tier. The interesting thing is, while they've lost the extra lack of movement on charges and they've lost their immunity to being injured, they're still great at shooting, right? So Rapid still affects their movement and Methodical still affects their shooting for Overwatch. So Methodical and Rapid is still really good. Like, you can still go, especially if you're playing like open-only tournaments, Rapid and Durable. I still think Rapid, Durable, and Methodical are the best three, but this kill team is definitely more of a shooting kill team now more than a melee kill team. So I generally expect or suggest most people just go with the ranged loadout. So you have like the Doom Bolter leader and then mostly ranged operatives, apart from maybe one assault intercessor and then your grenadier. Because, you know, generally you're going to move 7 inches, shoot someone in the face, or move and dash 10 inches and shoot someone in the face, right? This is where they excel out now, which is odd, but it's fine. Like, as I said, their melee potential has been nerfed, but their shooting has been left on like alone when they were most efficient at shooting. So it's not really much of a change here. And then we've got the Imperial Navy Breachers. They're still really good. Like, they haven't actually changed at all. Would technically be one of the best kill teams, but, you know, they're still the best Alpha Strike kill team. Could do tons of crazy combos. Very threatening at 12 bodies, all with like 8 wounds and a 4-up armor save or better. So you can't underestimate them. Still got all these crazy tricks. They've lost their, haven't lost their durability. They're not as durable as they were before, but their Alpha Strike potential is still ridiculous. Still a great kill team you can't ignore. Now we go into the S tier. So I was contemplating going like double S, triple S tier, maybe separating it out, but I think it's fairer just to knock everyone else down a kill team tier list, because effectively, if you removed Felgor's Ravagers, Chaos Cults, and Inquisition from the game right now, you would just move everyone up a tier, right? So everyone in the A tier would be S tier, and that kind of like maybe a little bit of a differential, but I need to show how big a gap the S tier is over the A tier at the moment. Like, on Into the Dark, it's ridiculous. There's a huge gap, and I don't think we've ever had this kind of gap except for when Kill Team first launched, when Custodes were dominating the game. This is really bad. So I just wanted to preface this before I explain the S tier, because we're in a really bad meta, guys. Like, this is really bad. So we have Felgor's Ravagers in the S tier. Yes, they did get slightly nerfed in the erratas, but, you know, now you can score tac ops off of them from killing them so you can destroy. It's not really a nerf, because now it encourages people to take Seek and Destroy and come towards you as a Felgor's Ravager player, which is what you want. Because the main reason this kill team survives, they have amazing base stats. Everyone has like 10 wounds or better, 4 attacks hitting on freeze with 4-5 or better. You have Pseudo Relentless and obviously Frenzy. So remember, once you're frenzied, you only die at the end of the game, or if you've been fought in combat and taken 2 hits or a crit. So how does this kill team be an S tier? Well, once again, they're like Commandos, but even better. What they make up for in no range, they make up with Frenzy, because the way you win with this kill team is you just body block points. You just run into the points, score them, secure them. Your opponent has to kill you, which frenzies you, but you can still score tac ops and control objectives while frenzy. So you literally just sit on the points, contesting them. Your opponent either has to run away or come towards you, and you just stall them out. Like, you don't even need to send all the goats into the points. You just send them on in a steady stream. And you have so many tools to like get control of points with your Gong, who also makes people harder to kill. You've got your own access to Super Conceal with your Sorcerer to make it safe for you to move up. Got crazy mobility with, you know, strat ploys, tactical ploys, and your leader's dash. Just a very powerful kill team. And even into other melee teams, they have ways to dish out tons of mortal wounds. And they have great faction tac ops. A great kill team. Probably shouldn't have had, recon. And I think the main way you nerf this kill team is basically you can't control or contest objectives or score tac ops while you're frenzied. And you either change how frenzy triggers. So like Charles was saying, frenzy only triggers when you're like ready, or when you're shooting at them, a single crit will kill them, right? So you have, because they have ways around like rolling defense dice, so if they can roll a lot of defense dice, just to give shooting teams like a rope, some kind of hope, shining light. But at the moment, they're S tier. Then we've got Chaos Cults, probably the best kill team in the game, maybe at the same as Felgor or just slightly ahead. Both really, really powerful. Chaos Cults, what is there to say? They've got Seek and Destroy and Infiltration, great archetypes, 15 bodies, and then they mutate so easily. They just overwhelm the opponent. There's too many of them. They get 5 mutants per game, well, per turning point. You know, you can have a max of 5 per turning point and a max of 3 torments per turning point. So turning point 2, you're against 2 torments, and you can go through like 5 torments in a game, which is just crazy. This kill team is ridiculous to face. They also love the change to loot because now they have more points to loot, so it's no longer their worst mission. It's just ridiculous, right? The way to nerf this kill team, it's so strong, right? The way to nerf this kill team is to basically, devotees can only mutate if they kill someone in combat. The Icon Arc only affects devotees with its buff auras, and mutants have a 6-up DPR, and I think that's a good starting point. Oh, and when you heal D3 plus 1 wounds as a fully healing. I think those changes would bring the kill team to some kind of respectable level, but they're just crazy. Like, you just overwhelm, like you've got access to 3 dashes. You can do crazy stuff. So if an enemy operative is within 2 white of your Icon Arc and you throw a crack grenade at them, that crack grenade is 5-6 damage. You're throwing an AP1 plasma gun at them. It's ridiculous. The tricks you can do with this kill team is just bonkers. Double fights, crazy mobility. They have it all, right? The only thing they don't have is long range shooting. But even then, they've got a Psycho who can just mortal wound, shotgun people to death, or like slowly pick away mortal wounds. Crazy, crazy kill team that's way too strong. And then we have Inquisition. So I was tempted to put like Inquisition in S tier, and then above S tier have Felgor's Ravagers and Chaos Cult. But I think it's important to highlight the power of Inquisition. And once again, I'll highlight how worrying it was in the Balanced Dataslate article on Warhammer Community, how Games Workshop acknowledged Felgor's Ravagers and Chaos Cults being a problem, but just ignored Inquisition. So Inquisition kind of break my rules for the tier list. They're really hard to play, but in the hands of a really skilled player who knows how they work, they will shut down any elite team in the game. And the problem with the Inquisition is they shut down elite kill teams, and they shut down kill teams that are designed around having one tactical ploy active every turning point. Now, as I said, it is kind of bad design for factions designed around ploys, but no faction is designed around that ploy being turned off every turn, right? So their main problem is absolute authority. For 1 CP, you turn off a ploy from when your opponent plays it for the game, for the turn, right? They get that command point back, but you just turn it off. So instantly, Hierotech Circle, this is the worst matchup in the game. Because once again, if you give someone a crack grenade and they alpha the reanimation scarab and kill the reanimation scarab, you now have no access to reanimation because the Inquisition will just turn off your reanimation strat. You can go with the Technomancer instead as the Hierotech player, but then you need the Chronomancer to win this game. So you're effectively fighting like just an uphill battle that you can't win. Not to mention Phobos, right? You're turning off Vanguard against Inquisition. You're turning off their Shoot on Death. There's so many ploys that I could go through, like Void Dancer Troop, you turn off one of their key ploys. Commandos, you turn off just a scratch. There's so many I could go through because these are things, like, when you design them, like, it's fine against Chaos Cult because Chaos Cult don't have a strat they actually rely on. They just have a nice group of strats. But against kill teams that do, it's ridiculous. And elite teams, because against elites, you run guard because you take a plasma gun, a melter gun, then you have a plasma cannon servitor, and then you have your pistolier with a plasma gun. So you have 3 plasmas, a melter, a demo mine, and it's just crazy because once again, they've got their once per game delay an operative. So turning point 2, you delay a marine that's too close and they just die. And it's the fact like you can buff the mystic, so it can turn a hit into a crit or miss into a hit, and you just delete people. And you've got Quarry. They really mess up elite teams. Like 13 operatives, they have 13 activations if they go with Vet Guard. They're still a really, really good kill team. The way to knock them down from this dominating position is like you have to make absolute authority just once per game, right? I'm fine with it being once per game, but for every turn, just going, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. Way too good. You know, they can pick every archetype. And then if there's still a problem, after you change the absolute authority, you limit how many plasma weapons they can take to 2, because that just hurts their melee and vet guard. But they're a crazy powerful kill team. Like, they're not on the level of Felgor's Ravagers and Chaos Cult, but they mess up the meta so much because they just shut down elite teams and kill teams that rely on a key strategic ploy or tactical ploy every turn. It's just too powerful, right? And this is the meta overall. Like, this is the tier list. So I'll go into the meta, into the overview, but this is where it's at. The S tier kill teams are so powerful, they forced everyone down a tier. Like, I think it's more impactful than putting a tier above S tier. They've just knocked everyone down. It's quite depressing. But if you remove the S tier, the game is fine, I would say. If you remove that S tier, it's an amazing meta. We have, honestly, you remove, like, we would have a really good meta. Just, but at the moment, the gap between the S and A tier is quite huge, but that's how I rank the meta at the moment. Like, there's a few things you could argue that maybe I've put Exaction Squad a little bit too low, and maybe I've put Vet Guard and Phobos too low. But I think based on the power and the ripples of the S tier, I think that's pretty fair, honestly. Like, it's just the way it is. But let's get into the overview. So for the tier list overview, yeah, I'll keep saying it, we're in a horrible meta. I've seen people argue that it's only 3 months, or like, you know, people don't play in that many tournaments. This is the worst period Games Workshop could have decided to go, you know what, for these 3 months, I think we're going to be cautious. It's generally quite bad if you want to play in a tournament in this period. Like, me and my other tournament friends are kind of like, well, so we either have to play the S tiers or pick a lower tier that has play and hope for the best, right? Because the worst thing I've seen are apparently, like, some TOs or players are thinking the way to balance out against Felgor's Ravagers and Chaos Cult is to introduce unsafe drop zones for open play. And by unsafe, I mean either not enough heavy or like no real terrain. So you can just get turning point 1 shots into people's drop zones. I'd like to draw the line here. That's bad. Shooting into people's drop zones turning point 1 is not a sign of skill or a good sign of balance. It's just turning the game into Warhammer 40,000, which no one likes. Like, make drop zones safe, but make going up into the board risky. That's a much better change. Like making, maybe like the center objectives only have light cover, so they're pinned down by a vantage point. That's much better than going, I have forward deployed or I've moved and dashed onto this vantage point. I'm now blasting into your drop zone. Oh, look, I've killed 5 operatives. What a fun game. I've now balanced the game. That's horrible, right? But like, I think for the teams that have the most play into the S tiers, I think it's Commandos and Elucidity and Star Striders. Exaction Squad actually, on paper, have a lot of potential into Chaos Cults and Felgor's Ravagers and even Inquisition, but they still hate elites. Like, elites, like you do get rending on your bolt guns, right? Well, you know, piercing, right? It's not bad, but you still don't like elite teams. And even then, while you're okay into Inquisition will activate you and just shoot you to death. So it's not actually the best of both worlds. But I can definitely see Commando having play, because once again, you know, when Chaos Cults and Felgor's Ravagers only have red shooting, you're not really scared about running your bomb squig into them. And, you know, Felgor's and Commandos and Elucidity and Star Striders technically have the best Alpha Strike potential on turning point 1 for open boards, because they can just run people up. You know, you could suicide in a trooper for the Elucidity and Star Striders, and then if they're still alive, shoot an asset through them. Like, you've got stuff like that, whereas Commandos can sneaky get and really pressure up the board, like drop the Rocket Boy and Daka Boy and Sniper Boy on vantage points into the drop zones, just shoot the Chaos Cult up. Like, there's plays around that, but that's more like only on open. On Into the Dark, I don't think you can reliably beat Felgor's Ravagers and Chaos Cult, but that's the way the meta is. And as I said, you know, like playing like with friends and casually, you know, you're not in too much of a bad space. You can go like, okay, well, I'll play Chaos Cults once, and then I think I'll play some other kill teams. But if you're playing in tournaments, you're in a rough spot. You're going to see Chaos Cults everywhere. you need to plan to do something into Chaos Cults. You either play Chaos Cults or you figure out how to beat Chaos Cults, like in some capacity. And you still need to keep in mind for Felgor's Ravagers. And if you're an elite player, just pray you do not run into Inquisition, or that person does not know how to play Inquisition, because those are your main choices, right? I have seen so much pain happen to elite players against Inquisition that it's crazy. And the wildest thing is people are trying to like subtly sleep on Inquisition and push them out of the way in terms of, oh, they're not a problem. But that's why this meta is so weird, right? We've never had a meta, like we've had metas where we've had one dominating kill team, but we've never had a meta where we've had 3 dominating kill teams that dominate the metas in different ways. So while elites may kind of do a bit better into Chaos Cults and Felgor's Ravagers, they really lose to Inquisition. And, you know, Felgor's Ravagers kind of struggle against Hordes, but Chaos Cult love Hordes. And it's that kind of thing. Like, and semi-elite teams, while they like Inquisition and maybe do well into Chaos Cults, they lose to Goats, like Felgor's Ravagers. So you have this really bizarre thing where there's no actual good counter, apart from running the S tiers if you wanted to win these tournaments. Because, as I said, in this 3-month period, we've got several golden ticket events, and I'm not going to begrudge players who want to run Chaos Cult or Felgor's Ravagers or even Inquisition to get those golden tickets. You know, that's the state of the game we're in at the moment. So I would never blame the players. Don't take it out on the players. But that's all I can really advise. Like, the messed up thing is it's not undefeatable, right? I'm not saying these teams are always going to beat you if they're in the S tier, but you're relying on factors outside of your control to beat them. You're relying on your opponent to be less skilled, boards to be badly set up so there's not much cover, or them having poor dice rolls. And even then, like Felgor's Ravagers and Chaos Cult have access to lots of rerolls. So that part is really hard. And it's not impossible, it's just very unlikely. But you know what I say, never tell me the odds, you know. Can you roll a crit? So if you believe, it can happen, but it's a really uphill battle. And that's what's disappointing about this meta. But all we can do is endure, don't ban factions, let Chaos Cult get like a 70 and 80% win rate, and then we can just see them destroyed, like just removed, right? Maybe the next balanced data slate, when there's not many tournaments, will be much better. But at the moment, I mean, as I said, remove the S tier. We were in a great meta, like amazing. Like last meta was amazing, and the tiers were really close. But yeah, I can rant about this for a long time, but it's just hard, right? It's like, I wouldn't tell people to stop playing or tell people, well, you know, it's only 3 months. Like, it's openly going to be a bad meta. But if you kind of go like, okay, I have a game plan against Chaos Cults and I know what to do, I wouldn't go into the I'm going to lose, just lost. Like, there are some ways around it. It's only really depressing on Into the Dark because you can't get to them turning point 1. So you just kind of go, there's things behind those doors that I know they're there. I will pray for the best. But as I said, if you want to like run events or play casually with friends, like, you know, playing when club nights, you don't have to play the S tier, and the meta's really good. And you may run tournaments where like compendium only events would be really great around now, because compendium teams are pretty balanced with each other, apart from a few minor things. But I would say that's my tier list. There's a few errors probably. Like, I'm still umming and ahhing about Exaction Squad, but I think they're not that great still. And, you know, I really like the change to the Warp Coven, but I know it's not going to do much for them. It's going to help on Into the Dark, but they didn't need help on Into the Dark, right? And then I just don't know why Lucidity and Star Striders got buffed, but they're very much A tier. Like, if we didn't have the S tier, they'd be in the S tier right now. But that's my tier list. And I'll have an article version up at the same time, so if you want to like look at that article, you have that, and I'll have a Patreon exclusive tier list with just only the bespoke kill teams. But that's pretty much it for me today. Please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know if you agree, disagree, anything I missed. And remember, I've got a Discord you can check out in the episode description below, as well as an affiliate link at Element Games, and a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. So I'll quickly shout out my patrons. So for my adepts of the crit, I have Sam, Nick, Mr. Meatwad, Kenzie, John Thomas, Captain Murder, Dad of Goldens, Ben, Arthur, and then for my veterans of the crit, I have Sam. Just so thank you so much for your support. It really means a lot to me and helps support the channel. But yeah, whew, that was another tier list done. It's kind of interesting to see how the meta goes. Could rant about how the meta is at the moment, but yeah, I kind of enjoy doing these every 3 months, and hopefully it helps you guys at home as well, because it's mostly a guide to help you prepare for tournaments and how I view the meta. It's just, I think this has been the only tier list I've done in recent memory for all of Kill Team where I can just go, yeah, the S tier is just literally the best. So it's weird, right? It's weird. It will be only 3 months, but I think what warps it is because we're going to have so many tournaments in these 3 months, it's just going to be like, why wait for these 3 months? Why not delay the balanced data slate by a month and then give us a more substantial balanced data slate? But it is what it is. All we can do is endure. Don't do crazy open drop zones. Don't change that. Don't make open a depressing thing to play. But remember, it's just a tier list. And remember, anything's possible as long as you can roll a crit and stay away from tier 15.